Beelzebub's Tales to His Grandson, Chapter 40. Beelzebub tells how people learned and again forgot about the fundamental cosmic law of Heptaparaparshinokh. After Beelzebub had listened to what was communicated in the Laito Chambros, handed to him, his grandson Hussein again turned to him and said, "My dear and kind grandfather, please help me to clear up for myself one contradiction which I do not understand, and which does not accord with my logical confrontations. When you began your elucidations about the holy planet Purgatory, you enjoined me to try to take in everything you spoke about, without missing anything. And you also enjoined me constantly to maintain the intensive tension of my active mentation, so that corresponding data for the formation of the notion relating to every question explaining the details of both primordial, fundamental, sacred cosmic laws should be completely crystallized in me. I did indeed try during all your elucidations to do so, and it seems to me I cleared up so much for myself about these cosmic laws that I could perhaps even freely explain them to someone else. In any case, I can already very well represent to myself the sacred law of Triamazikamno, with the particularities of all three of its sacred independent forces, and cognize it for my personal essence quite satisfactorily. But as regards the sacred law of Heptaparaparshinokh, then, although I have not yet fully cleared up to my reason certain of its, in my opinion, unimportant details, nevertheless I hope that with a little more active pondering I shall understand them as well. Now, however, after I had, while trying to assimilate well these sacred laws, clearly sensed, and I became aware that they are very complicated, and in general very difficult for a complete understanding, it suddenly greatly astonished me, and continues to astonish and interest me, how the three-brained beings who arise and exist on the planet Earth could not only understand these sacred cosmic laws, but could even have constated them among the surrounding cosmic results. Because, from all your tales about them, I got the full impression that since the second Transapalnian perturbation there, when each of the newly arising results of theirs becomes a responsible being, he becomes, thanks to the abnormal prevailing Oskiano, the possessor of only automatic reason, and that it is impossible to understand both of these sacred cosmic laws with such a reason. I became convinced with the whole of my essence when I myself tried to understand them." Having said this, Hussein looked questioningly and eagerly at his beloved grandfather. Having thought a little, Beelzebub began to speak as follows. "All right, my dear boy, I shall try to elucidate to you also about this natural perplexity which justly arises within you. It seems to me, I already once told you that although from the period you mentioned on that planet almost all the three-brained beings there became, thanks to the abnormally established conditions of ordinary being existence, possessors of only an automatic reason. Nevertheless, it does sometimes happen there that certain of them, by chance, escape this common fate, and that instead of that automatic reason which has become usual there, a genuine, objective being reason is formed in certain of them, as it is in all three-centered beings of our great megalocosmos. Although such exceptions, especially during recent centuries, are very rare there, yet, I repeat, they nevertheless do occur. in order that you may approximately represent to yourself and understand just how such exceptions may occur among them, you must first of all know that in spite of the fact that from the time when all the consequences of the properties of the organ Kundabuffer began to be crystallized in them, it became proper to them to have automatic reason during their responsible existence. Yet, nevertheless, always and up to the present time, at the arising and the beginning of the formation of each one of them, there is always in their presence the germ of all possibilities for the crystallization, during their completing formation into responsible beings, of corresponding being data, which later, during responsible existence, could serve for the engendering and functioning of objective reason, which should be in the common presences of three-brained beings of all natures and of all external forms, and which in itself is nothing else but, so to say, the representative of the very essence of divinity. There, in the objective sense, extreme misfortune about that which you yourself already perplexedly instinctively suspect, as I discern from the formulation of your question, especially from your having mentioned Osciano, consists just in this, that they, having indeed at their arising such possibilities in themselves, immediately fall, from the very first days after the separation from their mother's womb, only thanks to the abnormalities established in the process of ordinary being existence of beings around them who have already reached responsible age, under the stubborn influence of that maleficent means invented by them themselves for themselves, which, as I already told you, represents in itself a something of the kind of Osciano which they call education. And in consequence, in this way, all possibilities for the free formation of all that which is required for the engendering of objective being reason is gradually atrophied, and finally disappears in these unfortunate, so to say, still innocent in everything newly arising beings during the period of their what is called preparatory age. And as a result, when these newly arising beings later became responsible beings, they, in their, so to say, essence center of gravity, become the possessors not of that objective reason which they ought to have, but of that strange totality of automatically perceived, artificial, even deceptive impressions, which, having nothing in common with the localization of their spiritualized being parts, nevertheless acquires a connection with the separate functionings of their common presence. In consequence of this, not only the whole process of their existence flows automatically, but also almost the whole process of the functioning of their planetary body becomes dependent only on chance, automatically perceived external impressions. In very rare cases, certain of these favorites of yours who have reached responsible age become possessors of genuine pure reason, proper to three-brained responsible beings. This usually proceeds there thus. For instance, it happens that immediately after the separation from his mother's womb, one of the newly arising beings finds himself for the process of his subsequent formation among such surrounding conditions, where for some reason or other, all kinds of those abnormalities with which the entire process of the external being existence of three-brained beings breeding on this ill-fated planet is already overfilled, do not touch him and do not influence him automatically, maleficently. And in consequence of this,